Okay, Steven. I'm from the Netherlands, civil servant, and I will try to explain our objective to basically build a composable decision stack for public services. It's quite a lot of words, but basically we try to build a couple of layers. We start from the bottom. We have a single DMN providing business logic across several organizations. We want... I did try, okay. Sorry for that. So we start on the layer 1. This is not a layer from an architectural perspective. This is basically an approach of eventually ending up on layer 4. Because we want to have transparency on how legislation has been translated into rules and will provide, let's say, results of products, income support, stuff like that. So we start from here. I have an example here. I already building an example of separation of duties. So we distinguish logic in rules across organizations, and we would love to have a live, on-the-fly orchestration. And maybe eventually, long game, my dream is to have a plugin in Operaton that basically does on-the-fly BPMN process deployment based on selected DMN in a public library. But I need to show that. Because the problem in major, let's say, strategic objectives is if I don't see it, I don't believe it, and a good story with good arguments is not always the expected outcome. So I needed to show it. That's why I built a plugin myself. So this is not production ready yet, but eventually, quarter next year, it will be available as my own, let's say, 1.0 release party. I have a couple of screenshots. And everything I show today is online available. So you can everything look for yourself online. So every slide available here is meant to have an online representation. This is for people familiar with WordPress, with a typical dashboard, with the plugin here, Operaton. You can add configurations because I need to map the Gravity Forms fields and logic with the decision model logic. So here is an example. And I have then the Gravity Forms, the Operaton base endpoint, and we have two types of decision logic. You can either access the DMN direct, and then you have the end result, like this one. This is the layer 1 DMN with all business logic of 3 separated duties combined in a single one. But you can also, and this is a deployed version of that one in the Operaton cockpit, but you can also do process execution. And that's the interesting thing, because with process execution, I can go through all the tables, all the decision tables in my DMN. Sorry, guys. I can provide the results in between. And this is an interesting thing. I can have a decision flow summary. So I can basically provide, from a user perspective, in the Gravity Forms interface, each and every table input-output results. And this is the typical process engine that runs through all the tables. Finally, I need to make a field mapping, because on the Gravity Forms, I have my fields with input values. And in DMN, I need my input and output as well. So those can be selected. And then a couple of tests. So you can, from the back end of the dashboard of WordPress, before deploying, let's say, the Gravity Forms, you can test the configuration. We try to invest in connection pooling, so a connection can be reused. So we also try to be, from a performance level, on a nice way there, and some debugging available there. So we try to invest comprehensive testing from a user perspective, configuring in the dashboard. And I'm not a developer myself, so with some support of the LLM, I result a lot, but I'm very happy with trying to achieve, from a WordPress perspective, this is really okay. Okay, now the demo. Quickly. So the link on the top, you can try yourself. And this is in Dutch, but for demonstration, there's no problem. So this is a gravity form with pre-filled information: name, birth date, municipality. Are you single? Yes. Do you have children? The brutto income each month. Next, those are typical variables from the local policy. So you can trigger them, yes or no. And if I click on evaluate, look at the right top of your screen, there will be a populating message, because I will, with evaluate, do the call to the Operaton-Engine, and the result comes back. Oh, sorry. So you see, that's true for the Huistenpas and true for the kindpakket. So basically the income support is available, and this is the summary available. Each and every table, including, let's say, the process instance that's being called. So from the cockpit perspective, you can on process instance level. And I would like to show you, and ignore my scrolling here, but due to the reference norm of an income level, and my calculation of income is lower than that reference norm, so the output is true. Okay, that's fine. We go back, and we change the 1500 into 1600. Backspace, where are you? Oh, there. Next again, evaluate again. And you see the false happening here. And why? Why is that? Okay, check again. That's the same level, reference norm, but now my income is higher than that reference norm. 1.1, 1600, higher than that. Okay, I go back again. And I get a guy from the street and become one with a partner. So no longer single, birth date of my partner. That's that. My income doesn't change. I do evaluate again. And now apparently I'm again true. So I can get income support. But why is that then? And you see here, this level norm, this norm level value has been changed. Due to the fact that I'm no longer single, but have a partner, there's a higher reference to be checked against. So this is a simple explanation what can be done using an Operaton DMN in Gravity Forms. So you can try this yourself as well. So this is what I've shown. First, you get support, second one not, and the final one again. And here you see, this is interesting, because those are the calls done with the process execution. Where the calling process is absent, those are the calls with the direct DMN execution. But then I don't have the intermediate results. So what I did show on the final page of the Gravity Forms with all those input-output values, those are not available with the direct DMN call. But now the separation of duties, because that single DMN I showed holds three distinguished duties: the calculate of pension age, the norm level, and the local policy. Dus what I'm now trying to achieve is to publish each and every single DMN and make this process to orchestrate those together. And basically this will provide the same result as I did show on the Gravity Forms, but with the separation of duties on the DMN level. An example, and now something apart from Operaton and the plugin, but I think it's from a public services perspective important to know. This is the legislation in the Netherlands. Here you see those values, 1369, 1955. Those are those two values you saw in the DMN. But now people are typing them over. And we introduced as an extension, because from the public services perspective, we adopt the European standard core public service vocabulary, which basically is a metadata description of your public services. We extend that with the core public rule management vocabulary. And we even have an API for that. So the API, the Dutch law repository is basically an online repository. The local municipality policy is an online repository, and also the European legislation is an online repository. And those values, these reference values, I can, using an API, we already developed the API for that, and here you see the JSON output with these values. And those values can be automated into this DMN logic. So a legislation will be published, and basically we can have a complete automated pipeline to have those norm values for the new legislation via the core public rule management vocabulary API into DMNs being deployed. Pension age. Example, do I still have time left? Okay. This is the same legislation, different area, pension age. We have also developed a user-friendly, let's say, editor, because we do the core public service vocabulary, the core public rule management vocabulary. We describe those properties in TES RDF triple English, TTL. Basically, you are familiar with XML for, let's say, data and content. This is an XML kind of way for storing and saving linked data. This is an editor, and you can see we have the service, the organization, the organization, the legal reference, the rules, parameters, and I can deploy that. I can save it. But if I do have that TTL file, I can store it in a Triply database, in a linked data database. So we can store, share, and use linked data. And you're familiar with databases, with SQL, entity relation diagrams. This is the same, but no referential integrity conflicts. And we can Spark QL instead of SQL. And I can define predefined queries. So there's already a query to basically what public service is there. Well, basically there's a public service, AOW leeftijd, pension age. But I need the DMN for that. But that's also available in a public endpoint. But here, this is the Triply DB. Here is the DMN with the download URL that comes directly from the Triply database. And this can best be compared with, let's say, the latest tagged image you pull for the Docker Hub. But I also have the version-based DMN, which I basically have in a Git repo. So you can either go to the Triply DB endpoint for the latest published DMN, or you go, for more control, to the version-based one available in the repository, and both download URLs are there. But then I can deploy that. This is the XML of the DMN. And now comes the interesting part of layer 4. Because maybe we need to have some explanation how that legislation has been translated into business rules. So we enrich basically the DMN XML with our core public rule management vocabulary properties, and you see them here. So this is free information from legislation perspective that's meant to be used in the dialogue support with users. And notice this one here. De CPRMV note, bereken alleen de leeftijd van de aanvrager. This goes for a remark if the pension age is calculated for me as a single person. Okay, notice that one, because I've deployed that DMN into Operaton. And using my Gravity Forms plugin, I basically call the AOW datum. I get a response for that. But the most interesting thing is, if I push the legal information button, there you see. Those are those nodes. There's the legislation reference, the confidence level, and that one node. That one does this information is stored into the DMN. So, and to make a final remark here, so from a legislation, the legal person of the authority that goes for the business rules can add remarks that without user interruption or coding can be shown from a user perspective. Okay, where do you find it? It's on GitHub, but why is it on GitHub? Because the primary development is on a self-hosted GitLab community edition, but Gravity Forms is part of an open web concept WordPress environment. About 30 municipalities in the Netherlands are using WordPress with Gravity Forms. So with this one up and running early next year, all those 30 municipalities will by default have Operaton capabilities in their Gravity Forms available. So look around on this one. I try to invest a lot in the changelog. So there's already, and I'm already in, what is it, version 18 or something like that. And eventually, I expect early next year to have a first 1.0 release. I did show the mapping of the fields with the Gravity Forms. I need to have a drop down so that I can pre-select the fields available in the DMN and have them in the configuration available, because without that, I can configure it without having the DMN available. So that's definitely a need to have. And I try to have an improved quality environment. And this one, I was very impressed with myself, let's put it that way. Having a full, complete Cypress and Playwright front-end test, but I refactored the front-end module and broke the test. So I need to fix that again. And there's a couple of coding standard violations that can be automatically solved. So I need to do that by hand. And I'm a perfectionist. I want to have it complete and up and running. Okay, that was my story. Any questions? Yeah.
This was very interesting from a technical point. I missed the business. Why you do it? What your goal?
Well, the pension age is a nice example. I think more than 300 plus products require to check against the pension age. And all those organizations providing those services and products do those pension logic themselves. So they are inventing the wheel of the pension age 300 plus times year and year over again. So what we would like to have, a federated business logic area, composed decision logic. So we have I expect I will be in the social insurance agency Tuesday next week, because they are the ones authorized to calculate your pension age or my pension age. And I will have them, ask them basically for support to provide a nationwide service people can use. So all those 300 products can use the single pension age calculation logic provided by the authority that's mandated to do that.
Do you plan to build a product?
Build to?
Build a product of it?
Well, what I would love to see is to have because what I try to build a library with the business logic, including the DMN on the linked data store I showed. And I would love to see basically if I publish a DMN or publish a new linked data triples with business logic, including a DMN, that I can automatically deploy those DMNs into Operaton backend and can be used from a user perspective in what I try to achieve in the orchestration, live orchestration of selecting DMNs. And so the first step is provide those DMNs. Second step is automate deployment. And the final step is figure out how we can orchestrate a sub-selection of available DMNs based on the user request and that's more innovative way of thinking than building a product itself. So on the product level, I would love to have a plugin in Operaton by the end of next year for automatically deployment of DMNs published in the way, basically, if you publish a core public rule, core public service vocabulary product with a core public rule management vocabulary business logic, including a DMN, that you by design will be available to automatically being deployed in Operaton. That's the main objective. Yeah. Check.